Welcome back to Hardball. Barack Obama talked about the effect his race could have on the presidential race in an interview with CNBC. John Harwood asked the candidate if he thought race was a big barrier between him and swing voters.
Look, if you're asking me, are there some people who might not vote for me because of my race? Of course. Are there some who might vote for me because of my race? You bet. I think ultimately, though, the question's going to be decided by a guy or a woman who is working hard every day, trying to save enough to send their kid to college, trying to pay the bills.
It's hard to quantify racial attitudes, of course, because people don't like talking about them, but it's a commonly held belief that race will play some role in how Americans vote this November. To address the issue of race in this race, I'm joined by Ed Gordon, who's host of Our World with Black Enterprise, and radio talk shows Michael Sperkanish, who's one of my colleagues now. And it seems to me, when you look at this, let's try to do this positively, because we're all guessing at this. We know people who talk about it honestly and those who don't talk about it honestly. You're Barack Obama, and it's this Friday night, Ed, and you're trying to reach a big audience, including some people who are resistant to you because of ethnicity. Is there anything you can do about it in terms of jumping that line or getting across, building that bridge to somebody else?
Well, I think he's been doing that all along, Chris, to those who aren't truly bigoted. There are some who are just not comfortable quite yet with an African American in this position. He has to be, and we call it the black tax, black enough for black folks and not too black for white folks. He's been doing that masterfully. But we just saw a poll that came out, one that I don't give much credence to, that suggested that maybe 1/3 of Democrats, white Democrats, won't vote for him because of that. I don't buy that. But what I do buy is there are a number of whites who will not simply vote for an African American. He has conceded that, and I believe he and his camp suggest that they're not going to go after those voters. They're not going to turn them around in 40-plus days.
Yeah.
They're going to go after people who are not that far gone.
Michael, what do you think about this? Do you think there's certain things, I mean, you deal with a lot of different ethnic people, all kinds of people in Philadelphia, black, white, brown. You know a lot of people in that city, for example, you know, the suburban people as well. Is there any way he can jump it? He can say, yeah, okay, I'm going to reach that person who's a little hard to reach on ethnic grounds.
The hardcore bigot, I think, is off limits. He's not going to reach him, and it wouldn't be worth making the move toward that individual. And I agree with Ed insofar as we all saw that survey. AP and Yahoo, I think, generated it. And yeah. I'm disbelieving of those numbers. I would hate to think that 20% of whites think that most blacks can be ascribed as violent. Because, Chris, whatever those numbers are, I always think that they're underreported. Because I figure folks are lying about their worst instincts to a pollster. So that really has a sense of foreboding for Barack Obama. I don't think we're going to know until the morning after, and we wake up and we really dissect some of these numbers, what really played itself out. Are there some issues in which he can gain ground with working-class whites? And I don't mean bigoted white folks. I mean working-class whites who are clear-headed on these issues? I think so. I've been waiting for one or the other of them to talk about porous borders. But, you know, the minute you talk about porous borders, you're ascribed as a right-wing talk show host or a xenophobe or a racist. And yet I think that's a legitimate issue.
Let me try something by you. Totally seat of the pants. You first, Ed, then Michael. It seems to me there's a portion of white people, we all know, because they're older people, some of them, maybe 1/5, who just aren't going to vote for a black guy running for president or a black woman. They're just not going to do it. We can argue with them. They get in that booth. They're not going to do it. Then there's another 1/5 who would vote for General Powell, because he's a war hero and he's a conservative Republican, and they're very comfortable with him culturally, politically, professionally, militarily, nationalistically. He's their guy. How does Barack Obama reach that quintile, that 4th, 5th, the one that is reachable? Again, I'm going back to the question, Ed. Is it trimming his sails, or is it finding common ground with that guy or woman?
Well, quite frankly, I think he's got to find some common ground. But one would have to think if ever there was an African-American man who had that entree to these folks, it would be Barack Obama. He's half white. He's Ivy League. He's all of the things that white America considers
with working
safe.
Guys? Does that Ivy League piece help or
I don't
hurt?
think the Ivy League necessarily helps it, but we haven't seen those same Ivy League guys run away from the vote for the white guy. They may not want to have a beer with the white guy who went to the Ivy League, but they darn sure voted for him.
Yeah, I'm talking about guys like, you know, Kerry and Gore and those people, Dukakis. He has a little bit of that whiff around him, doesn't he, Michael? A little bit of that elite problem?
I think it does, and I think that it matters not what his race is on that issue, that effete quality. Hey, to answer your question, I've always liked how they've taken the bull by the horns and gone after the internet lure that surrounds Senator Obama, because, Chris, there's not a day I don't open up my website and have one of those emails, usually, written in a crayon, if it were in a written out version. You must read this, and he's taken that head on. I think that sort of stuff has had an effect. I mean, the only thing I haven't heard is that he put the first alligator in the New York City sewer.
You know what? I think he can win this if he gets out and reaches out to people and proves to them on this debate night, this Friday night, that he'll look out for them, that his job as president is to look out for them, and he'll do a great job because he's a smart guy and he's a lucky guy. And we like lucky guys looking out for us.
But what he has to do, Chris, is counterbalance those people that he will not get. Sure, there are some people on the fence who may not know enough about Barack Obama, albeit having nothing to do with his race. What he's going to have to do is counterbalance those that will not have those problems, i.e. other minorities, young people who I think have been underreported throughout this whole campaign. And if he gets them out to vote in record numbers, I think that he goes to the White House relatively easily, quite frankly.
Oh, I think it's great the country's going this far. I hope it comes down to the content of his character. That's what I want this about, both these gentlemen, McCain and he. The content of their character. What a great way to judge a president. Thank you, Ed Gordon. Thank you, Michael Smerconish.